Major issues in the church today. One of the biggest issues in church today is that the majority of the people that go to church go because of what they can get from the church and not because what God has already done for them. Let's talk about it today on Justified by Score. Now, if I were to diagnose the church today, I would go directly to the root, and that would be the why. Why people go to church. The why will affect why individuals attend church, but it would also directly affect how churches choose to attract individuals. When Kanye West first began to do gospel content, he said he was a Christian because he asked God to do something for him, and God did it. He was thankful and he began his Christian journey. But that is not the Kanye we know today. Why? Kanye himself attributes this to him asking God for something else that he wanted. But when God did not fulfill Kanye's desires, Kanye turned away from the church. And that is precisely what happens when you treat God like a personal genie. Again, the why people go to church, that will also affect the how the church attempts to attract more people. If the church is more focused on worldly measures, numbers and membership, rather than biblical measures, spiritual maturity, then churches will continue to build seeker-sensitive churches. This leads to several problems. One, once the individual gets what they need, they no longer need God or the church. Two, it makes the relationship with God transactional and not authentic. Three, it has pressured the church to adjust how they do church. The church uses membership numbers as the ultimate metric for success. So they adjust the content to attract the popularity, oftentimes sacrificing truth in the process. Pastors adjust how they convey their message. Pastors adjust how they, or the depth of their message to catch or to attract a larger audience. I'm not saying this is wrong. But when it is at the expense of truth, it is absolutely wrong. The ends will never justify the means. Sacrificing truth is still a lie. We see this in shows and competitions like who can preach the best. When individuals are more interested in moving a crowd emotionally than logically, that is when we begin to see 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3 and 4 come to life. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. Verse 4, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned into fables. The ESV reads 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3, for the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers that suit their own passions and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. Plato even mentioned that it is very dangerous to win someone over by this type of methodology because it focuses on tricks, rhetoric, and even popularity rather than genuine understanding of the truth. And it often made the truth irrelevant. That same rhetoric, that rhetoric reigns supreme in the majority of the American churches today. Preachers. Preachers are more likely to be adored by the multitudes if they give charismatic, persuasive speeches filled with feel-good isms rather than establishing the congregation in truth. The problem with that is catering to one's emotions in a charismatic fashion does not establish the individual in truth. In all actuality, you did the exact opposite. You dig them deeper in the emotional hole, in their emotional state. Then we end up in the church like we have it today. Then we end up with a church that is a mile wide and an inch deep. And when the winds came and when the storm comes, and they wonder why their foundation is uprooted. Matthew 7:24 reads that everyone who hears these words of mine and does them, will be like a wise man who built his house upon the rock. Because when the emotions die down and reality returns, and if you haven't had any substance added to you or any weapons added to you, nor have you been equipped to deal with what is coming your way, you are no better off than you were before. It's no different than being on a drug or alcohol. It is a temporary escape from the current issue. And when you come to reality, you still have to look reality face to face. You still have to face reality. So, ultimately, who is to blame? Unequivocally, pastors. When I go to the doctors, I don't tell the physician what they're going to do to prescribe me or how to treat me. Sure, I do have some part in it. I explain my symptoms. I also have a part in saying what I would like the outcome to be. But it is ultimately the physician who has had the years of training to diagnose the issue, to provide the prescription to heal my ailment. The problem in today's church is the pastors have mastered regurgitating what tickles the ears of the membership to get them to be a part of the church rather than being a physician to them so that they can be set apart and be a sanctified disciple. Somewhere down the line, pastors became more interested in numbers, in church membership, more interested in hearing their own voice, more interested in accommodating to the culture and to the people superficially because they knew that that's what would attract the numbers and membership, and they have become less interested in truth because it is not as exciting or emotional. So it is absolutely the fault of the pastor, elder, overseer of the church. And it is a difficult task to make it more important to make disciples than to make members. But that is absolutely the role and the position of the church. I have said this statement for decades. I would rather reach one person and be obedient to God than to reach millions and while being disobedient. I will be more productive to the kingdom by being obedient to God and only reaching one person than operating on my own strength and reaching millions. For full transparency and clarity, let me state this out loud for the record. Just because you are reaching multitudes does not mean you are in the will of God. And it does not mean that you aren't causing more harm than good. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sadly, there are a multitude of individuals who attend church that will never see the kingdom of heaven. Matthew chapter 7, verse 21 and 23. What needs to happen? We need to get back to the foundation. Simply put, the Bible has to return to being the ultimate authority on everything. That means we rely on the Bible to define our terms. That means we rely on the Bible to establish what is right or what is wrong. We rely on the Bible to dictate how church is done and even how exhortation or preaching is done. Until then, we will continue on this downward spiral of gaining church members, not being discipled. And this has been another episode of Justified by Score. I hope you appreciate this a little bit. And if you disagreed with anything I said, I look forward to hearing about it in the comments. I'll see you there. Lord willing, of course. Peace and grace.